Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fearlessly Authentic. I'm your host, Jody Harrison Bauer, and it is so good to be here with you today. If you are a first-time listener, this is the show that educates you, empowers you. We're hoping to be a little entertaining today and inspire you to live your most fearlessly authentic life. We are now a top 5% globally rated podcast, 4.5 years in the running, and I am so excited. It's all because of you guys. So I want to thank you so much for rating, reviewing, and subscribing and sharing with your friends, because we would not be doing this podcast anymore if it wasn't for you. So today I have a special guest with me. It is my oldest daughter, Elyssa. Hi, Liz.
Hi,
And
excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have her here with me too. And I thought it would be really fun to talk about love, confidence, and aging the way you want. And what inspired me to have my daughter on today is after watching the first episode of The Golden Bachelorette with Joan. And I thought, I'd really like to get the perspective of a younger person. And last year, when I did a podcast, I did with another woman who was in her 60s. So it was just really our perspective on the whole thing when we were recapping the Golden Bachelor. But I wanted to give it a different perspective. And since we talk about being fearlessly authentic on this show every single week, I I wanted to talk about how we can be in love with ourselves, love other people, and be always authentic to ourselves. So I love that Joan has shared her story and is being very vulnerable. And I was wondering what your take was at, like, let's just talk about the intro list. What did you think about that?
Well, as you know, I did not watch The Golden Bachelor.
Right.
So I had never seen her before. So I was completely unfamiliar. I thought she presented herself great. I thought her family looks wonderful, loving, like it was a very warm intro. And I think it was beautiful. She talked about her love and also heartbreaking.
Mm.
But I was also shocked when it came to the timeline, which I had to ask you if that was like it for sure, like
Right.
actual timeline, for being married for like 35 years, I think she
I
said,
don't remember how many years. It's a long time.
to then go on a show like a year after.
I think it was like almost 2 years.
Okay. So, and yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're being authentic, as we should be here, and fearlessly authentic, look,
no shame
no
in that,
shame. No,
but
but we can never put a timeline on when somebody's ready, right? I remember, when I was younger and my parents' friends like lost their spouse or something, and then hearing all this gossip, well, that was a short time to start dating
right.
somebody, or somebody's spouse dies and then the guy's already like engaged 6 months later.
They could have had
It's like,
conversations
right.
when he got cancer of what he wanted for her,
Right.
and
Clearly wanted her to be happy.
right.
So I give her a lot of credit. I'm sure it's not easy. She looks great. I thought the men that they found for her, they seem to be pretty exceptional.
Yeah, I agree.
Could you see me dating any of those men if I were ever like on a show like that?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, the one, what was his name? Jack, that sang it My Way.
Yeah.
I mean, that song always reminds me of you and Mom
Me.
and Mom
Yeah.
and Papa. Yeah.
Right.
Um, so I feel like that would have tugged at your
It did.
strings.
I will tell you that after, I know you watched it recently, and so I went back and I watched it again today, a little bit of it today, to just get my thoughts together for the show. And when I first watched the intro last week, it didn't really pull at my heartstrings. But today, when I watched it again, it did. I almost got teary-eyed. And I think a lot of younger people who watch it, what I've heard is that they're crying through this whole show. And did you have that feeling at all?
Not yet.
Mhm.
I mean, I thought it was very sweet and like loving and thinking about myself, on the end of their children,
Mm.
having their parent go on. Um, I thought it was wonderful. I mean, all kids ever want for their parents if they are divorced is to be happy and to find someone and to find love.
Your perspective has definitely changed since you were 13 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all experience ups and downs with love, and you've been through little bit of a tough time. How do
Just a
you
little bit.
feel about, we were talking about Joan saying she was invisible. She
Yeah.
felt invisible. One of the things that her deceased husband made her feel was incredibly visible.
Mhm.
I know being divorced that, oh, no, I never really felt invisible. I don't
Because you, yeah,
know.
you like,
I don't know. I wasn't 60, I was 42.
no, I know.
So, but we were talking before the show, and you said something about feeling invisible even at your age. And I think it doesn't have to, feeling invisible doesn't have an expiration date.
No, I think just based on society and the way, them having the Golden Bachelor, Golden Bachelorette, and kind of showing the world people your age in a different light. They still have a lot of life. They still have, you know, so much to offer. They're not dead.
Right.
And I think for me, I got divorced at 31, I think 31 or 32,
33.
33.
Yeah.
Times weird,
Yeah.
which was awful. It was difficult. And the idea of dating when I was ready, which I had never done before because I was with my ex-husband for 15 years, um, was terrifying. And also to be divorced at 33 without having children yet, which is something that's always been so important to me, was kind of like, I don't want to date a man who has other children. I want to have children. Um, and are those men looking for someone younger whose, eggs are
Maybe
fresh
more
and
fertile.
yeah. So there is that sense of being like kind of in the middle without having the kids, without being in your early 30s, or because I didn't start dating until a while after. Um, you kind of feel like, where do I fit in? Is this ever going to happen for me? Even though deep down you might know that, it's very scary. And so when she said that, I could still resonate with her a little bit on that feeling of being invisible in that age that, society doesn't necessarily look at and think, you're ready for love.
That's interesting. And I'm glad you brought that up because I wouldn't know what that felt like because I was never in that situation that young.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got divorced from your dad, I already had the two of you. But I could understand that there's that very weird space of like not having the most fertile eggs, but still being fertile, wanting children. And I do really think that things have shifted to, I think there all has always been the women who have had children later in life, but certainly at 35, you're not too old. You're never
Yeah,
too old.
no. And I think also just the pool of men is much smaller. I mean, you can look at it negatively, or you could look at it realistically, and it is. And so that's scary as well. And I think probably in your 60s, that pool of men that are either single or, living the active lifestyle and healthy,
Mhm.
somebody that like she would want to find is also small.
Right. And I think as you get older, you are more picky about who you want to spend your life with. I know so many women my age and a little bit older, a little bit younger, who don't want to take care of another man. They don't want to take care of somebody who's getting sick. They want to
Mm-hmm.
meet a young, healthy person. And a lot of people in their 60s and 70s who haven't taken care of themselves may need somebody to take care of. I always heard one of my clients said, I don't want to be a purse or a nurse.
Yeah.
I
I
just,
think your list of non-negotiables grows as you get older. And I
mhm.
mean, I don't know what it was like to date in your 20s, but I definitely wouldn't have had a very clear idea of what I was looking for at that
Right.
age.
Funny you say that because I didn't date in my 20s. And you
Right.
didn't date in your 20s,
Yeah.
but Lexi did. So
Yeah.
we should have had her on the show, but she's away right now. So
Yeah.
we couldn't have her on the show. We miss you, Lex. So I think that, do you think it was brave of these people in this generation, the baby boomers, to be on a show like this? Do you think it takes some bravery, some courage?
Yeah, I think it's completely unfamiliar. I think just if we're going to generalize, your generation isn't as acclimated or active on social media or with watching reality shows because they can't identify with it.
Right.
So I think it's exciting for them. And I think a lot of them probably went in blindly. A lot of the men probably have never watched a reality show before.
No.
So I think it also is a good way to also show, and they're not looking for to be an influencer. They're
No.
not, so they're going on
They're
there
there.
very authentically.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And what I loved about this group of men, we've never seen this group of men, this age group, um, the camaraderie. I just thought
Yeah.
was so cute. It was more so, it didn't feel competitive. Maybe it will get that way towards the end, but it felt like just a group of guys that were rooting for each other. And I think that's beautiful to see.
Yeah, I agree. I think also maybe again with age, it's not, and no knock to the Bachelor or the Bachelorette, but these people know with reality shows you go on, you're going to become an influencer. If you make it far, you're going to get followers, something's going to happen for you, whether you win or lose. And I think here it's really just complete authenticity. And the men are like, let's see if we hit it off. And if we don't hit it off, I'm rooting for you because we all want to find love.
Which you don't see with the younger groups.
I mean, you watch The Bachelor and
Right. But
Bachelor
how do you think this show would compare? You like Love Island.
love.
So can you imagine like Love Island, um, baby boomers?
It's a totally different kind of show.
I know it is, but I think that
Uh, that would be weird.
because they sleep together.
Yeah, they just like they do everything together and it's 2 months long and this is a lot shorter and they have private, I don't know.
I
It
don't,
just wouldn't
it
work.
gives you
But I
ick.
honestly, no. But
Okay.
the idea of, I like the idea of the Golden Bachelor and Bachelorette much better than Bachelor and Bachelorette
Why?
because it feels more authentic.
It feels more real.
It feels more real. I think there are good I mean, I love reality shows, but the likelihood of kids in their early 20s
Great.
finding love in like 3 weeks
I don't think it's
with
three
like
weeks, but
50 other people,
right.
it's just about winning and becoming like someone on the internet.
I think when the show first came out, which was
Yes,
20 years ago,
because you were just in the tabloids.
22, right? You were in the tabloids. There was no social media.
That's when I
Nobody,
watched it.
right? Nobody came on to be an influencer, and it was really, we're overusing this word a little bit, but it was very authentic.
Yeah.
And now with social media, I sound old when I'm saying this, but now with
I mean, I
social
said the same
media,
thing.
it's completely different. And I think I personally think that people are tired of watching 20 somethings pretend they're looking for love when they don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
So the difference between them and then 2 generations, 3 generations afterwards. I mean, these people are in the 20s. I'm in my 60s.
Yeah.
So 40 years older, we certainly look, and I think I can speak for most people in 60 and over, that we know what we're looking for. And in your 20s, it's just a shit show.
Yeah.
It's just a total
And
shit
and
show.
it can work and it has worked, but
Right.
I think now watching something like she knows exactly what she wants
Right.
and there's really no bullshit.
Right.
And I can relate to that and you can relate to that. Like
Right.
I don't want to deal with all these things. I don't have to be okay with some of my non-negotiables. Like I want what I want and I have a right to want it and I deserve to find it and I will find it.
Mhm.
And they know what they're looking for and they know what they deserve.
Yeah, I think they should do a millennial bachelor. I think because I think as millennials, you're in your 30s and 40s. I think you guys have already been through a lot. And
That would actually be really fun to
I
watch.
know. I think that it would be a really good show, and I think they should add all those generations. You know, I love food shows, right?
Of course.
Competition food shows. So, Master Chef with Gordon Ramsay, they just their newest season, they had generations. So they had Gen Z all the way up to baby boomers, and it was two millennials at the end and a Gen Z or a millennial one.
Really?
Yeah, but I think there is some infatuation maybe with millennials right now because you are the first generation to talk about your feelings so openly.
Yeah.
You are very much like your baby boomer parents, but the biggest difference being is that you speak more openly about your feelings. So as baby boomer parents, we're like, oh, she's talking about her feelings all the time. But we love that. But this is our first go with your generation, and it's good. It's all
Right.
good.
Having babies and talking openly about what we're going
Well,
like.
anxiety. I mean, when I was growing up, anxiety was just like, get over it. Like, just if you're anxious about a test you're taking the next day, just study harder for
Well,
it. Like, nobody,
that's what it was when I was a kid too.
no. Yeah. Okay.
I
We're going to take a break right now and we will be back in a minute. Stay with us.
You are listening to Fearlessly Authentic with Jody Harrison Bauer. We'd love to hear from you with any questions or comments you may have. Send an email to info@jodyharrisonbauer.com. That's info@jodyharrisonbauer.com. Now, back to Fearlessly Authentic.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We were just having a heated discussion about whether or not I told my daughter it was okay to be anxious. We were talking about anxiety.
Well, I think I was just always anxious, but it was never, we focused more on the ADD when I was younger.
Right, right. But I'm just saying that your generation, then we'll finish with this, was like is the very first generation to really talk so openly about their feelings. And I think watching The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, I watch it, even the 20 somethings, because I'm just so interested and fascinated by relationships, no matter what age they are. But I see these kids going on the show, and you really want to wonder, like, are they really looking for love, or or is it just BS? Is it just to become an influencer? And I think that's why maybe the producers of the show, if they're listening, should maybe move it up a generation, because I think it's just kind of silly. Like, I love Joey. I'm loving the fact that Joey and Kelsey are together. That's great. But he was very mature. He was, I know you didn't want.
I know nothing about it, but it's saturated. And I mean, I love all of them, but Love Island's my favorite.
How do you think The Bachelor compares to other dating shows, reality dating shows?
I mean, I haven't watched The Bachelor and Bachelorette in a long time.
But you watch other dating
But
shows.
yes, I will admit, like when Love is Blind comes up as like #1 on Netflix, I'm like, you know what? Because like it's mindless.
Mm-hmm.
But and and there's a lot of it that I think is idiotic and like.
But what do you think about Love is Blind? I mean,
I
we both
think a
watched
lot of like
season.
with there are shows that are like these I do not watch, but like 90-day marriage or like never seen, like Love at First Sight or something like that, and they like
show.
get married like
It's crazy.
unseen.
It's crazy.
To me, I can't watch that because it's just like, does everybody look at marriage as like not something that's should be taken seriously versus like, oh, I can just get divorced. Oh, it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
And I think that part I don't like. And so with Love is Blind, I like it. And this season they had a lot more, most of the contestants were like in their mid to early 30s, I would say.
I don't think there was anybody in their 20s.
No.
Which I think is really smart.
Yeah. But then I'm also like, there was a girl who had recently been divorced and then she went on it and I'm like, why? And then you're just gonna like possibly like get married on the show and then get divorced. I don't know.
Who was that?
I don't remember.
Okay. No, but I did notice their ages. I thought
Yeah.
that was really important. I
liked that part.
What do you think the dating experience differs for someone in their 60s or 70s compared to somebody in their 20s and 30s?
Like everything. But I think in your 60s, like your kids are, if you have kids, they're older, they're out of the house, like you can live your life.
Mhm.
I think in your 30s, you're just starting to raise your children. So if you're divorced and you have a young kid
In your 30s.
in your 30s, that's tricky. If you're if you have multiple kids and the person you fall in love with or are dating doesn't have any and wants kids, that's tricky. There's another player in there, the ex, and you have to, there's just a lot of things to take into consideration. And you also ask yourself the questions of like, why are they single?
Oh.
Which was always my concern.
Wait. So if you were, I know you're in a relationship now, but like before you were in a relationship, if you met somebody who was single, never married, no kids, and was over 40,
Mhm.
would you go, what's wrong with him?
Well, I asked that about everyone
Okay.
initially. And I took no time to get down to the nitty gritty when it came to
Yeah.
dating, as far as like the questions I would ask on the first
Right.
date, like,
Mhm.
why are you single? Like,
Mhm.
what do you want kids? Like, the very important things I would ask right away. And
So like they were being interviewed, kind
I
of.
mean, it always flowed
Right.
very well. And I was lucky that I went on some dates with people that, didn't
Mhm.
feel like they were being interviewed and
Yeah.
wanted to know the same things about me. But I think you want to make sure that your life aligns wherever your life is right now with that other person. Whereas in your 60s, like you've lived a lot of life already. In your 30s, you've lived a lot more life than in your 20s, but
But life is ahead of you.
life is ahead of
In your
you.
30s, this is to me, when I think of my 30s, I think of this is the springboard to the rest of my life.
Right. And
Like,
now I know exactly like, what I see in my future, what I want,
mhm.
and I want a partner that matches that.
Mhm.
And
I want that for you too.
yeah. And I think those are really important. I think for people in their 60s or older, I think it's might be more about companionship rather than being like, of course, teammates, but like you don't have to be teammates in the same way that you would have to be when it comes to raising children.
It definitely, I think people my age are even pickier than ever.
And rightfully so.
Because we have lived, a lot of life. We have, if we've had children, we have raised our children. We have either encountered maybe the loss of a spouse or divorce or multiple divorces, parents dying. And now our kids are definitely older and doing their own thing. And that leaves us saying, well, what now? And then if you're not stuck in a certain state or a certain country, you can go wherever the
Yeah, I
heck
feel like you
want.
just
There's
want
a
to
lot
have
of
fun
we do. I think that's
and
what I hear.
enjoy life the perfect way it looks to you.
Right. I think you're right on about the companionship. It's not really about, yes, it's about finding your other person again, but it's about having fun, experiencing life. And I think those two things, like they needed to be in your 20s or your 30s or 40s and so on, they need to be aligned, of course, but it's not so. I think the biggest difference is there's not so much pressure, right? Because we've already gone through those times.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like some people in their, again, it's only the first episode, but I do hope we hear more from the kids, like obviously not taking over the whole thing because it's not about them, but which kids wanted their parents to go on and which ones didn't, and what that age looks like in those children. Like if there are children that didn't want their fathers going on it, they're probably in their 20s.
Why do you think that? Because they're not evolved, they're more selfish, more self.
I don't know. I just think of myself.
Mhm. Right.
And I would have never, I would have never wanted you or dad to be single and going on a reality show. Now I'm like, Dad, you should go on it. if anyone's looking. But I just I want my parents to be happy.
Yeah.
And I want that. I don't want them to be alone. And
Right.
speaking dad, like I just, there's only so much like, and he doesn't have a problem with dates or anything else. It's
Right.
just, I want to know that someone's taking care of him.
Interesting. I wonder if a lot of other kids your age feel the same way, that they just want to know, just like we as parents, we want you guys to be happy. We want to know that you're with somebody you love and they love you the same way. You want for us to be happy and be loved and find the loves of our lives and so on.
Yeah.
So I think with that maturity, I think there's more of a go dad, go mom, find.
Yeah. And I've also seen both of you in like ups and downs. So I know, like, obviously, but I know you're both your best versions when you're happy, which not always means you're with someone, but usually. Uh, depends.
Not so much. But no, I think that's an interesting perspective on dating in your 20s and 30s, dating in your 60s. We're definitely looking for two different things. 20s and 30s is a life commitment with somebody, possibly raising children, if that's what you both align with. By the time you're over 60, you're like, let's go have some fun.
Right. Like even
life is freaking serious when you're raising children.
and even something like religious views or something like that. She could fall in love with someone that has a completely different religious view. And I don't even know if she, has them
Right.
at all. And it wouldn't matter because it's not the same way when you're
Raising a family.
Yeah.
Right. Or it may not. We can't speak for her,
Right,
or it may
right.
not. It may not.
It feels like it would be less important and it would just matter who the person is versus all of the other things that come with that person because you're not you already know who you are. You're not.
So let me ask you another question. So Joan is 61.
Mhm.
And when I think about being in my 60s, I remember when my mom turned 60. Remember you were at her surprise
I
party.
was just talking about this the other
Yeah.
day, actually.
And my mom was very pretty, but
And so lively.
and so full of life. But if you look at like Joan at 61 and Mama at 60,
It's crazy. I mean,
know.
I remember when you turned 60 and we looked at the picture
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like, how was she 60? Like she looked great, but like just the clothes and it just all looked.
And maybe it was a style, but I don't think so. I think that we all
60 isn't the same as it was
No.
when
No.
Mama turned 60.
No, not at all.
Right.
And I think Joan presents herself very well.
Yeah,
Very well.
She looked beautiful. Her eyes are gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like every person on TV, how do they all have like bright blue eyes? I'm like,
I
give them
know.
to me.
I know. Like, what's her name on Love Island? Who
Everyone.
was the young girl that was with Aaron?
Oh, Kaylor.
Yeah, those eyes were
They all
incredible.
had
Yeah, they all.
perfect eyes.
I know.
It's crazy.
Okay, next question for you.
Uh-oh.
What lessons do you think millennials can learn from watching older people navigate relationships on shows like this? You don't know. What do you think you can learn from watching The Golden Bachelorette? What do you think you can learn from watching Joan handle herself and these men?
Maybe it's just like the struggles that your parents could internally go through that they don't communicate to you to understand, like to get a little bit more insight into like the head of our parents rather than our parents putting the burden of their feelings on us, which
Right.
No, get it that way, but
so maybe you're watching Joan. I really want you to watch this whole season.
looks like it.
I'm gonna make sure that you do. Right. I think that's a really good point that maybe you'll learn, quote unquote, learn something from watching Joan navigate and how the men interact with, oh, I remember this person I know is going through that same thing, and I didn't really know what they were feeling.
And I think it's also, this one is, to me, might be a little more interesting with all the men because, like, I mean, I talk very openly with both of my parents, and it's never been like we don't talk about feelings in our family, but I think to the level that you and I speak about our feelings versus watching like your father on TV
Right.
having all these emotions or talking about the things that they've gone through, like it just kind of makes you go like, oh, oh,
Right.
like,
And see, and I watch it. So that's, I love that you say that.
yeah.
You're like, oh, like you have sympathy or and empathy.
And you also are like, oh, wait, like I went through this too. Like I remember when dad brought something up to me when I was going through my divorce, and I was like, who knew he was able to relate to me on that level? Not the divorce with you, different divorce.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I had no idea.
So far,
Who are my favorites?
yeah, who are the favorite guys for you that you think are good for Joan?
Okay. Well, I don't really know Joan.
Okay, you don't.
So I'm
really know Joan.
I'm gonna go off of the men that I can remember because it's always hard. I remember watching like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette years ago.
When was the last season you watched?
Like Caitlyn, like
Okay,
like a
that
lot
was like 2017, I think.
yeah.
Okay,
So in my like mid
I don't know how old you are. I
whatever
can't do the math right now.
what was 2017, I was 28.
Okay,
Anyway, there are so many people, so it's hard to remember names, and as like it goes on, it's easier. But I wrote it down. Keith, Jack,
okay. We like Jack was the one who sang.
sang.
We loved him, and then he cooked food for her later on. So the food looked not so appetizing, but she was a good sport, and I think that was so sweet that he cooked her food.
That is sweet.
So sweet.
I mean,
He's
love
a caterer.
love a man.
Yeah, me too. And sing.
And and
He's
sing.
adorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keith, Mark,
Mark, Kelsey's dad,
Dan,
Dan the man,
and
from
then
Florida. He's the one who adopted
and then there were a few others. Honestly, I like the men that get emotional. So when they were showing their children at the end, sending videos, even if I wasn't attracted, which I couldn't be because they're my father's age, but
I mean, did you think any of them were handsome? I mean, like you're not blind.
no, I know there were some handsome men like that. The majority of the men like looked very good for their age. Like they were attractive men.
Right. And they were
But-
fit. They were fit too.
But seeing the men that like teared up when their kids came on, like
I know.
that's when I was like, I like you, I like you, I like you. Because
Yeah, a woman
I
likes a man
imagine-
who emotes and is vulnerable.
yeah, not afraid to like show their soft side. And also as a woman who clearly family and her children are very important to her, you would want to see the same thing for the man, because I would imagine the one thing that could be an issue is if they don't have a relationship with their kids and you're very close, then they'll never understand each other. And that could cause issues when it comes to grandchildren and how much time you spend with them and things like that. So,
And therein, that's the conversation we had earlier
Right.
about alignment.
Mhm.
So there's always that alignment, no matter what age you are.
right. It just sounded,
It's a different level.
Yeah.
It's the level of importance.
Yeah.
What's important.
Yeah.
So we are going to take another quick break and we will be right back.
You are listening to Fearlessly Authentic with Jody Harrison Bauer. We'd love to hear from you with any questions or comments you may have. Send an email to info@jodyharrisonbauer.com. That's info@jodyharrisonbauer.com. Now, back to Fearlessly Authentic.
Welcome back, everyone. We are talking about the Golden Bachelor. We are talking about love, confidence, and that's the other thing that I want to talk about was like get into it a little bit, confidence.
mhm.
So in your 20s, we think we're confident, but we're really not.
Confident as hell. Well,
Yeah.
that's how I felt.
You felt that way.
Yeah.
But when you look back, did you know what the hell you were talking about? I could tell you now, probably not.
Well, you're gonna say no. I mean, I obviously know a lot more and I've been through a lot more, but like my 20s are great.
Your 20s were great. And that's how 20s should be. They should be fun. Do you think that this show
Mhm.
is going to help other women across the generations feel more confident about putting themselves out there because they see a woman who's 61 putting herself out there?
I think it should. I think for a few years now, I feel like it's been shifting
I agree.
where, 60 isn't the same 60 it was when your parents, my grandparents were alive, and 40 isn't the same as it was when you were 40. And so I think, and a lot of people talk about it, and I definitely get targeted that kind of thing, being in my mid 30s, but I would hope so. I think almost the one thing that I wish they did was they just came up with a different name for the show in general and didn't associate it with The Bachelor or The Bachelorette.
Why?
Because people that have stopped watching that show for so many years don't watch it. Like, I only watched it because you were like, you'd enjoy it, you should.
Right.
And I was like, okay.
Right.
But
yeah, I don't really have a problem with the name, but I get
it's a cute name. I'm just saying, like, attaching it to that brand. What
I don't love about the show overall is that why does there need to be a proposal at the end?
I agree.
I would love for them to just say at the end, I've really enjoyed getting to know you and I'd like to see how
I'd like to keep dating.
I'd like to keep dating. So like Joey and Kelsey.
Yeah.
They got engaged, but he said to all of the women, I want a long engagement, which basically means let's say we're monogamous and let's see how this goes.
I agree. I mean, it's not, it works for some people. There are success stories, but like to get engaged after less than a few months, let alone weeks, is when you're not spending 24/7 with them anyway, you have no idea who they are.
No.
You're seeing the best side of them.
So
it's terrifying.
So let's go back to dating over 60 again.
Okay.
And bridging and seeing somebody like Joan and Gary from the season before, who was like in his 65 or something like that, and all the other women who he wanted his attention, who wanted to be with him. One of the things that's changed and talked about so much now is menopause, post-menopause. And just like your generation is the first generation to really talk so openly about anxiety and ADD and all of these other things, the Generation X, those in their 50s, are the first generation of women to have this huge platform of social media to talk about menopause.
Yep.
So when I was going through menopause before any of social media,
I mean, you said it the other day.
Like, no,
so these people are acting like they invented menopause.
Right. But I give them props because they're speaking so openly about it. And the women, Joan is, I could almost guess 100% that she's postmenopausal. And all of the women who were on The Bachelor last year, Golden Bachelor, were all postmenopausal because most women go through menopause by the time they're 58 at the oldest.
That's late.
For the most, yeah, that's late. Most women go through menopause at 50, 51. 55 is usually late, but some women it's 58. Anyway, and it used to be that you would think of a postmenopausal woman as dead, like that she had, talk about invisible. If you were a postmenopausal woman, that means you could not have any more children. You were of no use to society. You've already had your babies. You've already raised your family. What do we need you for anymore? All we needed you were for your fertile eggs and to raise the family while we were going out and slaying dragon in a traditional home. So now what I love about these Golden Bachelor and Golden Bachelorette people is that they're showing my generation
you can be sexy and young and
the sofa. Stop laying there and eating the chips all day
and act like your life is over.
And your life is over.
Right.
Like you can get out there and find love, find companionship. And I do think shows like The Golden Bachelorette are going to motivate a lot of women, whether they're in their 30s, 40s, and beyond, to get out there, because there could be a woman right now in her late 40s who, raised her family and is like, okay, now what do I do? Well, if Joan could get out there at 61, I can do it.
Or like feeling like you can still feel like age is just a number. And I know that sounds so cliche, but like you can still be sexy. You can still like want things that aren't cliche for people in their 60s. Like,
well, people used to shut me down when I would talk about being sexy.
No, I know.
And now being older and being sexy is so much more acceptable. And I love that.
Well, because I think now sexy is associated with confidence. Whereas maybe
confidence has always been sexy.
I know, but I think the way like before social media, it was like sexy is slutty, confidence is it wasn't talked about.
Right.
But like,
yeah, isn't that interesting? And so I always looked at confidence as being a very sexy thing because
so did I, because I learned that from you.
Right, right.
But generally speaking,
right. And I agree with you. So for people who didn't have that perspective, seeing Joan being not dressing like, you know, like schleppy or like covered up like,
yeah,
you know, yeah, like really covered up. So she's not dressing modestly, but she's not dressing sexually. She's dressing appropriate for her.
She looked
and I think
she looked,
she looked, and I think that's also another thing that women can look at and say, I could do that. Like I can put myself out there. I don't have to look like Joan. I don't have to look like these other women, but I know I can try to be the best version of myself and put myself out there.
That's ultimately what it comes down to. Yeah.
Right.
Is
right.
being the best. Because when you feel good about yourself, then your outlook on everything else isn't as negative. Coming
Right.
from the person that can tend to be negative sometimes. I think when you're honest with yourself and you do the work and you know, you really get to understand and not hide things from yourself.
What do you mean by doing the work?
And
I think this is up for any age.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what's going on in your life, but for me, I think it happened after my divorce when I was really reflecting on everything and really feeling like I was going to be alone forever.
And I think that's a way a lot of women in their 60s and 70s feel. So yeah.
Yeah, knowing that I did everything I possibly could to, you know, make it work. And then what was missing that I want. Like once I got over that hump, it was like, okay, if I'm going to start dating, what am I actually looking for? And like, what do I need? And it was okay to be honest with myself and say, like, I need something. Whereas I typically would try to take everything on myself.
I like that. Yeah, you did a lot of work on yourself. And I think that that's gotten to where you could talk about it openly now with confidence without getting emotional.
Yeah.
And I know it is amazing. So what do you think your generation can learn from watching somebody like Joan?
To just know, like, no matter what age you are or what society tells you you're too old for or you can't do, like, if you want to do something, you want to find love or you want to go start a new career, do it. Go do it. And nothing's impossible. So, I mean, even you, like my sister and I don't have a podcast. Our mom does. Our mom has way more followers than we do, or any of our friends. She did it and she had no idea what she was doing, but she did it. Yeah, really, nothing is out of reach. If I feel like I'm taking the things that you and dad used to say to me as a kid, but like if you put your mind to it, you can do anything. But truly, no matter the age, like you're not dead, like
you're not too old.
You're right.
You're not, I mean, you know, when I think I was walking Ava this morning, she's 7 years old and we're still doing training. And I'm thinking, okay, we're old dogs, but we got to learn these new tricks, you know, and it's not too late. And that's what I think shows like this give younger people and people my age and older the opportunity to see themselves, maybe see their parents, maybe say to their mom or dad, hey, you guys, you should try out for the Golden Bachelor or Golden Bachelorette. Like there's like, you can go out and find love. I want you to find love.
I think a lot of people your age, like I can see like Greg's mom or something like saying to one of her friends that's single, like, you should go on the show.
Right.
It's amazing. The men were so cute. Like they have such amazing children, you know, like, and so, yeah, I think so many people can relate to this show of being at any age, but also being in your 60s and it being empowering, watching Joan and these men go on there and be vulnerable and put it all out for the world to see.
So what kind of advice would you give someone from your generation about embracing aging and being open to love?
Embracing aging, well, it's gonna happen.
I love that. That's simple. It's going to happen. It's very true. Aging happens.
And
being open to love.
Aging happens. Again, you always say this. My friends and I joke all the time, like, how are we 35? How are we 40? Like, I remember being at my mom's 40th surprise party.
Right.
Like,
how did we
I still feel like I'm a teenager. Like when I talk to my parents, like I'm still afraid they're gonna yell at me and I'm a full-blown adult.
Right.
How would
what advice would you give somebody in your generation about embracing their age and being open to love?
The open to love thing is hard for me to give advice on because I've always
been open to love.
Been open to it. And I think if you're not open to love, there's nothing wrong with it, but to go deeper and understand why, maybe.
I think that's a good point. Figure out, kind of go deeper, great advice. Try to understand why you're not open to love, because love's not going to come knocking on your door. If your heart is not open, it's a vibration level.
Yeah.
So if you have that high vibration of love in your heart, sending it out into the universe, it will come back to you. We have to believe that we deserve love. We deserve to love others, and we deserve to feel the love all the time, no matter what age we are.
Yeah. And then love doesn't always feel like maybe the way it was in a past relationship or something like that. And that's why you are afraid to open up to it again. You just know what you're looking for now and what doesn't suit you.
I love that, Liz.
Right?
I love you.
Thanks. I love
you. Okay, well, we are done. That was a great episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm saying that's a great episode if I do so say myself. I enjoyed doing this with you. And for everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next week, stay fearlessly authentic. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Bye-bye, everyone. We'll see you next week.